Gravity's cruel math. Beyond the atmospheric dangers lurks a more insidious threat. The mathematical certainty of what happens when human physiology meets Martian gravity. Every bone, muscle, and organ in your body operates under the precise assumption of Earth's gravitational pull. On Mars, that fundamental force drops to just 38% of what your biology expects, triggering a cascade of deterioration that begins the moment you arrive. Evolution has meticulously calibrated human physiology to Earth's specific gravitational constant over millions of years. Our skeletal structure functions like a precisely engineered building, with load-bearing columns and support beams designed exactly for Earth's gravitational loads. Bones constantly remodel themselves through a delicate balance of osteoblasts, building new tissue, while osteoclasts break down old bone, a process gravity regulates. When that gravitational equation changes dramatically, the consequences are profound and predictable. Without the constant stress that Earth's gravity places on our skeletal system, our bodies begin to shed bone mass deemed unnecessary. The mechanism works with brutal efficiency. Calcium leaches from bones, weakening their structural integrity from the inside out. Data from astronaut studies on the International Space Station provides a troubling preview of what awaits Mars settlers. In microgravity environments, astronauts experience bone density decreases primarily in weight-bearing bones like the spine, hips, and legs, the very structures we rely on for mobility. The process begins almost immediately after arrival in reduced gravity, with measurable losses occurring within weeks. Mathematical models predicting physiological responses to Martian gravity suggest that without effective countermeasures, settlers could experience up to 30% bone density loss within just months of arrival. This deterioration is comparable to severe osteoporosis on Earth, a condition typically developing over decades in elderly individuals. On Mars, your skeleton could effectively age decades in mere months, potentially turning a 30-year-old colonist's bones into those of an 80-year-old. This calcium exodus creates a compounding problem. As calcium exits bone tissue, it enters the bloodstream, creating potential for kidney stones and cardiovascular calcification. Your body, operating on evolutionary programming designed for Earth, systematically dismantles its structural support system when the expected gravitational stress disappears. The same gravitational reduction that weakens bones simultaneously attacks our muscular system. Like our skeleton, muscles develop and maintain themselves in direct response to Earth's gravitational resistance. Each movement involves muscles working against gravity's pull. When that resistance decreases by nearly 2/3 on Mars, muscles rapidly waste away, following a predictable pattern. The largest muscles used for posture and locomotion experience the most significant atrophy, potentially leaving settlers struggling to perform basic physical tasks within months. This muscle loss further accelerates bone density deterioration, creating a downward spiral of physical decline. The cardiovascular system faces equally serious challenges in reduced gravity. On Earth, your circulatory system has evolved sophisticated mechanisms to ensure blood properly circulates against gravity's pull. These mechanisms include muscle tone in blood vessel walls, valves in veins, and heart adaptations, all calibrated to Earth's specific gravitational constant. In Mars' reduced gravity, fluid distribution fundamentally changes. Without Earth's pull, bodily fluids shift upward, with more blood collecting in the chest and head. This redistribution triggers physiological responses. The body perceives excess blood volume and eliminates fluid through increased urination. The heart, no longer working as hard against gravity, begins to decondition. Its muscle walls may thin while blood vessels lose elasticity, creating a particularly dangerous situation upon return to Earth, where astronauts often experience orthostatic intolerance, the inability to maintain blood pressure when standing. These effects would be cumulative and progressive with each passing month on Mars. The human body simply wasn't designed for variable gravity. It assumes Earth's specific 9.8 meters per square second and optimizes accordingly. Some physiological adaptations would eventually occur, but evolution works across generations, not within individual lifetimes. The first generations of Mars settlers would bear the full biological challenges without evolutionary adaptation. Their bodies would operate in an environment fundamentally mismatched to their biological design specifications. The implications extend beyond bone, muscle, and cardiovascular health. The vestibular system, responsible for balance and spatial orientation, relies on Earth's specific gravitational cues. In Mars' reduced gravity, settlers would likely experience persistent disorientation and coordination difficulties. The immune system, influenced by fluid distribution, might show altered responses to pathogens. Even reproduction and fetal development, processes optimized for Earth's gravity, raise serious questions about sustaining a Mars colony across generations. The biological responses to Martian gravity represent fundamental challenges to long-term human presence. While Hollywood often shows astronauts bouncing happily across the Martian surface, the biological reality would be a constant battle against your body's programming as it systematically breaks down in response to the altered gravitational equation. Human settlement of Mars isn't impossible, but we must approach it with clear recognition of the biological challenges involved. The body's response to Martian gravity isn't speculation, but mathematical certainty based on our understanding of physiology in altered gravitational environments. Any successful Mars settlement must address these biological realities directly. Fighting gravity's effects. Science demonstrates that fighting gravity's effects requires more than willpower. As astronauts on the International Space Station have discovered, maintaining human physiology in environments with altered gravity demands rigorous intervention. The ISS has become our testing ground for countermeasures that might someday help Mars settlers. But the solutions we've developed so far reveal both promise and profound limitations. The current defense against microgravity's effects centers on intense daily exercise. ISS astronauts use specialized equipment that simulates weightlifting in a gravity-free environment, allowing them to perform crucial resistance exercises targeting major muscle groups and stimulating bone-preserving stress. They also utilize cardiovascular equipment to maintain heart health when the body no longer continuously fights gravity. These exercise protocols represent our best current approach to preserving physical integrity in space. Yet they demand extraordinary time commitments. Like training for an ultramarathon that never ends, ISS astronauts dedicate approximately 2.5 hours daily to counteract gravity's absence. This substantial time investment raises serious questions about long-term Mars missions, where crew members would need to balance physical maintenance against exploration, research, habitat construction, and countless other mission-critical tasks. The exercise countermeasures, while partially effective, offer diminishing returns over extended periods. They slow deterioration, but don't halt it completely. Even with religious adherence to exercise protocols, astronauts returning from 6-month ISS missions show measurable physical decline. For Mars settlers facing years or even lifetimes in reduced gravity, the math becomes increasingly problematic. How many hours of each day can reasonably be devoted to simply maintaining basic physical function? Medical science has responded to this challenge by exploring pharmaceutical interventions that might complement physical exercise. Researchers are investigating medications commonly used for osteoporosis treatment on Earth, particularly bisphosphonates, which inhibit the cells responsible for bone resorption. These medications essentially slow the process of calcium being leached from bones, potentially preserving density even in gravity-poor environments. The pharmaceutical approach offers efficiency over exercise alone. A medication regimen requires less time than hours of daily exercise. However, medications bring their own complications, including potential side effects during long-term use and questions about how effectively Earth-developed treatments translate to the unique physiological conditions of Mars habitation. Most importantly, pharmaceutical interventions represent mitigation rather than solution. They slow deterioration rather than preventing it entirely. Imagine stepping into a spinning habitat where your body suddenly feels the familiar pull of gravity. This vision represents perhaps the most promising technological approach, creating artificial gravity itself. Once confined to science fiction, rotating habitats that generate centrifugal force have moved into serious research. Studies have demonstrated impressive results for cardiovascular conditioning, showing that spinning environments can effectively simulate gravitational forces on the human circulatory system. These findings suggest that rotating living quarters could potentially address some of gravity's most damaging effects. However, artificial gravity systems present their own complex challenges. The engineering requirements for creating effective rotating habitats at Mars settlement scale would be enormous. Smaller centrifuges for periodic treatment sessions show promise, but would still require significant time commitments from settlers. Additionally, the transition between artificial gravity environments and Mars natural gravity could potentially cause disorientation and adaptation issues, especially if settlers routinely move between different gravitational fields. Even with perfect centrifugal force simulation, exercise would still be needed for maintaining bone, muscle, and aerobic fitness. The body requires both gravitational force and active resistance to maintain terrestrial conditioning. This suggests that even the most advanced gravity countermeasures would likely need to be combined with exercise regimens, again raising questions about time allocation during Mars settlement. Research into bone density preservation offers another avenue worth exploring. The parallels between space-induced bone loss and terrestrial osteoporosis provide valuable research crossover. However, these treatments were developed for naturally aging populations on Earth, not for otherwise healthy individuals living in permanently altered gravitational environments. The long-term efficacy of such approaches for Mars settlers remains uncertain. The reality emerging from current research is sobering. Maintaining Earth-evolved human physiology on Mars would require a complex, multifaceted approach combining exercise, medication, potentially artificial gravity, and careful monitoring. This regimen would consume significant portions of each settler's day and still might not fully prevent physical deterioration over extended periods. The time commitment alone raises serious questions about settlement viability. Can a functioning society be maintained when every member must spend hours daily just preserving basic physical function? For prospective Mars settlers, daily life would involve a rigorous regimen of exercise, medication, and potentially time in artificial gravity environments, all while attempting to build a functioning society on an inherently hostile planet. The time and resource commitments would be substantial, potentially limiting the productive capacity of early settlements when productivity would be most crucial. This predicament exposes a central paradox in Mars settlement planning. The more effectively we preserve Earth normal physiology, the less time settlers have to actually build and maintain their new civilization. Conversely, accepting greater physical adaptation might increase productive time, but potentially render returning to Earth impossible as bodies become too adapted to Mars conditions. Either approach demands difficult trade-offs with no perfect solution evident in current science. The